Hi. I decided to do a little reading blog thingy, and I'm gonna do it with this book, Graceling, by Kristin Cashore. Sorry. I read this book back in like middle school and loved it, and apparently it's part of like a loose series. Didn't know that. Also had an alternative cover that was very beautiful that I'm tempted to buy, but I don't need because I already have this book. But so yeah, I'm gonna start it tonight during the lull periods at work, and I'll let you know how I feel about how much I read during my break. So yeah, that's it. Let's go, I guess. Hello. I'm back to you a few days later. For you, it's a couple seconds. For me, it's a few days. It's cold in here, which is why I have the robe and the blankets on. But I got up to like a page after chapter 5 in this, and I'm greatly enjoying it. I remember why I like this book so much, which is always nice to have happen whenever you go back to reading things you haven't read in like a decade. Fun fact, this book actually is a series. Like, I did not know that Graceling was a series until a few days ago when I went on Thrift Books looking for other books to read, and I saw something called Graceling with a very beautiful cover. Like, I'll put an image in at some point. And I was like, oh, this is so pretty. I was looking for Denmei novels or Chinese boys love. Yes, I was. And it popped up for some reason. Maybe because the cover style was similar to cover styles in some Denmei novels that were translated in English. So maybe that's why it showed up, but it did, and that's how I found it. And I was like, oh, there's a cheaper version of the book. Let me see what that looks like. And it was this cover. And I was like, I have that book. I've had that book for over a decade. Wait a fucking minute. And that's how I found out it was part of a series. And so one TikTok explaining this later, one of my classmates from a different semester was like, hi, I actually have the entire series and I'm not going to read it. Do you want it? To which I said, yes, absolutely. How much do you want for it? To which she said, you can just have it. So I'm getting the complete series for free, which is making me stupid excited because I adored this book when I was younger. Like, loved it to bits and fucking pieces. Like, this is one of the few books that aren't like picture books that I kept for well over a fucking decade. That this bitch came with me everywhere. In terms of moving, like, I didn't carry the book around with me, but I did move everywhere I moved. This book came with me, so I'm very excited to have the complete series, and I don't gotta pay for it. It's honestly the best. Anyway, done with that. Wonderful news for me. The 5 chapters I've read, I didn't realize how much of the story I did not remember until I started reading, which is fine. It's been like a decade since I've read it. Nostalgia has been keeping this book next to me. I can admit that. The main character so far is death-giving, jaded, bad bitch, which makes sense. Sis has been working a brutal job since she was like 10 years old. She is the niece of the king of one of the kingdoms, and she's a Graceling, which in this world means you have heterochromia, and you are like have a grace, which is like an ability. For some people, it's being able to climb trees really well. For others, it's being able to read your mind. And it could be anything within that spectrum. Part of me thinks that the people with the more mundane graces don't actually have graces. they just have heterochromia. But because this is set in like pre-technology, medieval-ish type setting, like there's horseback and all that fun stuff, they don't have anything on genes yet, so they can't, the only thing they really have to say whether or not you're a Grace is your eyes. So whether or not you actually have a Grace doesn't really matter. So yeah. So her Grace is that she kills people really easily. And she found this out because her creepy cousin was trying to fill up on her, and she punched him as like an 8-year-old. And that 8-year-old her killed her cousin via punching him by accident. And instead of seeing whether or not she's okay, everyone was like, oh my god, you monster, you bloodthirsty beast. She then proceeded to get training for years, and her uncle was like, I'm going to use you to put the fear of me in my entire kingdom. And that's essentially what she was forced to do. She didn't do that shit sitting down, though. At some point, she was like, I kind of want to actually help the kingdom, not just play crazy dog for the emperor. So she created a council, and that council spread throughout all 7 kingdoms, where the council are the ones actually, helping the people, because the kings of these nations, 5 of the 7 nations, are kind of useless and egotistical and crazy. So she's just holding them all by a thread. So that's our main character. Our love interest was already introduced. He was briefly shown as the one dude. She was like, I probably should have killed you, but I didn't. And as we all know, that means you're the love interest. Like, I remember him being the love interest, and he's like the laid back, can and will actually get the job done, but will do so with like a lazy smile type. So I am looking forward to reading their dynamic again. I don't remember how much I enjoyed that particular aspect of the book, as back in the day I did not like romance, like at all. So, which is hilarious because now that's like all I read. But back in the day, Kiara didn't like romance. But I love this book though, so it probably didn't like overtake the story. But so yeah, that's where we're at so far. She just finished a secret council mission that to save the king of the prince, which is the grandfather of the king of one of the nations that have a competent ruler, one of the only 2. Yeah, and she's on her way to do what she was actually sent out to do, which was basically be a debt collector, because the king doesn't give a shit that his people are literally having like thugs and pirates wreak havoc on them and like destroying their lands and crops and shit. No, fuck that. But you cut down extra trees without paying me? Yeah, no, let me send someone there to cut off your fucking fingers. Make it make sense, but that's like a large part of the point. It doesn't. So yeah, that is it so far. I am very happy to be reading this again, and we'll see where we go, I guess. See you next check-in. Hi. I thought I'd do a little update on Graceling, as I am taking a break from it. I do this thing with books that I like where I'll get very excited reading it, and so I'll try to read it faster and faster and faster. Then I'll get irritated that I'm not absorbing the information fast enough. So I thought, as I noticed I was starting to do that with this book, that I'd just take a break. That and it's finals week right now. I have a lot of assignments that need to go in and studying to do. I cannot focus on this gorgeous book, unfortunately. But from the first check-in, I That's page 44 to page 300. So that's a lot of information to be running through from the difference. But all in all, basically, to put it bluntly, I fucking love Katsa and Poe. I love them so much. I forgot how much I love them because I adore them to bits and fucking pieces. The profanities were needed because, bro, they just talk it out. They literally just talk it out. Like, in this book, Katsa has a inherent distrust for Gracelings who can read minds, and Poe, his grace, spoiler alert I guess, is that he can read minds when they're thinking about him. So no thought about himself is hidden. He hides this because it can be used by his family, and his mom and granddad was like, absolutely the fuck not. So they pretend he has a fighting grace, which works out because he can literally see what you're gonna do to him before you do it, because you think it before you do it. So it works out. But like, anyway, so she finds out about this on her own, which is not great. So she comes back angry and feels betrayed and all that stuff about something that he was not allowed to talk about and was gonna tell her anyway when she got back. And instead of having a whole like rekindling their relationship BS, they just talk about it. They literally just talk about it. And that's how it's resolved. Same thing with her going and feeling like a fucking savage monster and like she's going to kill her uncle if she goes and deals with him after disobeying him. And they talk about it. And she decides not to, commit regicide because they talk about it. She finds out that she fell in love with this man, and her immediate reaction was, oh fuck no. He lets her have her moment, then they talk about it. And that's how they end up together. They talked about it. It's like, communication is key in a book. And I love it. Because the one thing I can't stand about romances is the miscommunication and things that can be resolved if you just talked to each other. I hate that trope with a burning passion. It's why I don't read strictly romance novels. Because typically we have that bullshittery. And it irks my whole soul. It's fully a turn off for a book. Like, the second I start reading too much of it, I will just stop reading the book. It's that much of an issue. And it's not here. All they do is properly communicate with each other. I love it so fucking much. Literally, like, every other post-it is just me exclaiming how much I love these two. That's all it is. That's all these post-its are. Me talking about how she like little bits and pieces of the book, and then there's like post-its like this one where it's literally just me screaming in post-it form. I really like doing post-its, actually, because I have no one to talk to about these books as I read them, and writing it out and putting it in the book is very nice. Also a cool gift idea. So if you don't want to write in the books directly, you can throw post-its in for your thoughts and like gift the book to a friend. Because now I have 2 copies of this. I think I might actually do that. She's not getting this copy. She'll get the copy that I got new. But like, something to do. But yeah, that's essentially it. I'm in the 3rd act right now. The first act is like the establishing act, the King Rhonda act, so to speak. The I am currently doing everything my uncle tells me to do because that's all I know act. Act 2 is their romance act. This is establishing their, like, their, what's it called? Their relationship. This is just how I'm breaking out the book. The book actually has its own, like, part 1, part 2. But how I see it is there's an Act 1, which is the Rhonda act, and Act 2, which is their romance act, which is what I just finished. And I'm getting into part 3, which is the fucked up king act, because the king of that everybody thought was this beautiful, kind soul had a grace. And his grace was that you will believe whatever narrative about himself that he tells you, even if that narrative is spoken by somebody else. It gets weaker the further away from him it gets, but like, that's dangerous, especially because he's a sadistic son of a bitch. So we're at the stage where they're trying to protect Bitterblue from him. Bitterblue is Poe's cousin because his aunt is the one who's married to this fucked up king. She dies, by the way, poor woman. Does her best. But yeah, I'm currently at the scene where Poe is about to go and try to kill the king, and there's this much of the book left, aka a third of it, aka that means he fails. Like, he's gonna have to fail. So it'll be fun to see how they deal with that. But yeah, that's my update on reading Graceling, I guess. I'll check in again when I either read a little bit more or finish it. Yeah. Hi. So I finished Graceling a few days ago for me. And I loved it. I remember why I love it when I was younger, and I love it now. Um, Honestly, if you want a good fantasy book with action and characters who believe in the power of communication and them not forcing the female character to suddenly want things that she didn't want, like in most fantasy, in books where the female character starts off not wanting to get married or have kids, they usually be like, oh my god, this man is perfect, I'll have it for him. And that's cute and all, but sometimes I'd like to see people keep their agency in that. As somebody who is child free, it's nice to see somebody stay child free throughout the entire fucking book. It'd be nice. And I get that here. She doesn't change her mind. She loves him. She loves the male lead. Why do I not remember his name? Why do I not remember his name? Poe. Why am I so bad with names? I literally devoured this book and I still can't remember character names. Jesus. But Katsa still loves Poe. She loves him with her whole heart and soul. But she doesn't want to get married. She doesn't want to be bogged down anywhere. She wants to keep traveling. And by the end of it, spoiler alert, she decides she wants to teach. She wants to teach girls how to kick ass, because for some reason, even though they're constantly victimized, no one thought to teach them how to fight for themselves. It's something that gets brought up throughout the book that she notices with other females around her, and she just can't stand it. So she's gonna fix that, and I love that for her. Yeah, they end off in a relationship that they're happy with, even if nobody else understands it, which is great. It feels like natural continuations of their character, which is also great. Another spoiler alert, Poe ends up disabled by the end of it. And instead of just showing it as, oh, we have a magic cure, or like, oh, this is fine, or this is the worst possible thing, he goes through a grieving process of he loses his sight. He goes through a grieving process of losing his sight. And then he, with the help of Katsa, gets better after adjusting to his grace, adapting to his loss of sight and whatnot. By the end of it, he's quite happy where he is too, which is also very fucking nice. I'm very happy with that as well. The next one I'm going to read is Bitterblue, which is the it's not a continuation sort of series. It's in the same universe sort of series. So the next one I'll read is Bitter Blue, which is the name of the little girl in this one. The child queen, because shit gets wild in here and she ends up queen. Read it. Just read it. Just fucking read it. But yeah, because Bitter Blue and Fire are both like parallel novels. So they're companion novels. You can read either or both. They're both telling the same story in different perspectives from my understanding of it. So Bitter Blue will be next for me. And I'm excited to read it. I will not be diving straight into it because, well, I didn't bring that book with me, for one. And two, I need breaks in between series. Otherwise, I start to get impatient with absorbing more and more and more material, which leads me to hate it for a time period. I don't want to hate this for a second. So I'm giving myself the proper space in between books and within reading the books to actually continue to enjoy it as I'm reading it, as I am reading for enjoyment, not because I have to. So that's nice. That's fun for me. And that's it for Graceling. I'm very happy with finishing this book, and I'm glad I have a second copy because at some point I'm gonna go through and annotate that copy and gift it to my bestie because I love this book so much. I want her to read it, but I want her to read it as if I'm reading it next to her because yes. So these post-its will be throughout the entire book this time, and you know, living my best life there. Which means it'll be a while before I gift that book to her because I don't want to reread it again immediately. That's a bit much for me personally. So probably like a few months, like her birthday gift for next year, probably is where I'll end up doing that for. So if you off chance she sees this, you know what one of your birthday gifts are. But yeah, I'm gonna record the clear out for my big reading vlog thing, the reading vlog I'm having for my entire time staying at my nana's, which I'm breaking into parts because it's a lot. I got to like 30 minutes of clips put together and was like, that's a lot. That's a lot of editing for somebody who's doing this on CapCut on her phone casually. Let me just split it up into pieces. It's for me anyway. So, yeah. But yeah, 10/10 would recommend. If I were to give it a rating, I'd give it a 9.5 out of 10. Wouldn't call it perfect, but it's damn near close. So yeah, you can buy it on thrift books for really cheap, like $5-6 if you want to read it, a physical copy. I'm not sure if there's an ebook of this. I don't think there is, but it's pretty easy to get a secondhand copy somewhere if you don't want to buy it new. Yeah. Thanks for sticking around with me in this review, I guess. Review, reading vlog thing, jiggy. I don't necessarily know what to call it. I'll call it a reading vlog. But thanks. Later.